President Rodrigo Duterte, on Monday, rejected the reported plan of the United States to return to its former naval base in Subic Bay. In his fifth State of the Nation address, Duterte recalled reading news reports from weeks ago that the U.S. intends to return to its former naval base here in the Philippines. However, the president appeared to be reluctant to allow Americans back in the country, saying that U.S. bases will put Filipinos in extinction should a nuclear war breaks out. That's why when you put a base at this time, this will ensure, if war breaks out because there would be atomic arsenal brought in, this will ensure the extinction of the Filipino race, Duterte said. Subic Bay was one of the most extensive U.S. naval facilities in the world before it was shut down in 1992 when the Philippine Senate terminated the base's agreement with Washington. Duterte earlier this year ordered the termination of the Visiting Forces Agreement (VFA) with the U.S. However, the separation was halted in June amid the pandemic. And, we redefined our relationships with our most important partners, placing the country in a far better position to advance our interests in an evolving regional order and emerging global problems, Duterte added. Following the president's address, other administration officials have expanded on the reported plan for the U.S. Navy to return to Subic Bay. Department of National Defense (DND) Secretary Delfin Lorenzana said there would be no American presence at the base. There will be no U.S. base in Subic. I can assure you about that, he said as reported by Philippine news agency. Meanwhile, Navy Chief Vice Admiral Giovanni Carlo Bicordo warned of the effects if the U.S. returned, arguing that it would make the Philippines a legitimate target in the unlikely event of war. That is way beyond just having U.S. Navy ships conducting repairs or other commercial activities in Subic, Bicordo said, according to Manila Bulletin. Meanwhile, in recent years, the United States has struggled to persuade the Philippine government and the country's citizens it is serious about honoring its commitments under the 1951 U.S.-Philippines Mutual Defense Treaty (MDT). China has been feeding this growing mistrust, hoping to drive a wedge between the two long-standing allies to the point one or both will move to terminate the treaty. 27 years ago, the Stars and Stripes were hauled down for the final time at Naval Base Subic Bay, Republic of the Philippines, fulfilling the U.S. obligations to withdraw all military forces and vacate all bases after the Philippine Senate rejected a new military bases agreement in September 1991. This ended 94 years of U.S. military basing arrangements in the Philippines. At the time, there was no peer competitor in the Western Pacific, and then Pacific Commander Admiral Charles Larson announced a new Pacific and Indian Ocean regional strategy of places not bases, which remains the strategy today. In 1998, a new Visiting Forces Agreement was finally signed, allowing U.S. military personnel and ship visits to the Philippines. In 2014, the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement (EDCA) was signed. However, despite Pompeo's strategic clarity and its reception by Secretary Locsin, Philippine Secretary of National Defense Delfin Lorenzana held fast to his call for a review of the MDT. In December 2018, Lorenzana surprised complacent security watchers in Washington when he announced that the MDT ought to be reviewed to determine whether it should be maintained, improved, or scrapped. Secretary Lorenzana saw that the Philippines benefits from its alliance with the U.S. through mechanisms such as the Visiting Forces Agreement and the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement (EDCA). However, Lorenzana also recognized the ambivalence in the operationalization of the retaliatory clause in Article 4 of the MDT, mainly the wording that each party would be following its constitutional processes. As early as 1982, then-President Ferdinand Marcos had contended that if the Philippines were attacked, the United States would not be bound to immediately react because the constitutional process mandates congressional approval, which, in turn, means a delay in American military intervention.